Hello, my name is Zachary Lurie and I'm a learning designer with Sustainable Screens Australia, and in this video we're going to complete the disposal section of the carbon footprint calculator. I have my carbon footprint preparation checklist handy, and you'll notice there's an entire section on disposal that you can refer to help you when you're working out how to record entries for each of the materials that you're going to dispose of. It's important to remember that this disposal section will often match your materials section, because what you're purchasing you need to account for with what you're disposing, either recycling, repurposing, storing, or sending to landfill. So I've navigated to the disposal section in my dummy production of 10 bedrooms, and let's have a look at entering the first entry. You'll see that the categories you have are general mixed rubbish, food compostable items, timber, textiles, electronic waste, batteries, paper and cardboard, plastic, metal, glass, and construction. And you need to enter an entry for each of those. If some of the entries are being recycled, put a separate entry for that. And if some of it's going to landfill, you would need to click landfill. The first example I'm going to do here is of waste, and that's going to go to landfill. So I select general mixed, select waste, and I can put the amount in tons or kilograms, or I can also use volumes of containers. Now, if you have a waste management supplier, they can issue you with waste reports, and you can work out the average waste per month and also the totals when you calculate all of the reports. I'm going to enter in some data here as an example. So on our production of 10 bedrooms, we disposed of 150 metric tons of waste, and you click save. Now, a proportion of our disposal is actually mixed or commingled recycling. So I put in an entry here, mixed recycling. I select general and mixed, and then I select recycling, and I put in the total volume. And for us in this production, that equated to about 5 metric tons, and then I click save. The next entry I'm going to do is for food. Now, if you don't have a separate compost service, your food waste will probably be part of your regular waste, so you would have to select food, and instead of composting you'll need to click landfill, unknown. Whereas in this production we were able to organize a compost collection service, and we got a report from that vendor. So we're going to type in food compostable, select composting, and put in the weight in tons, and we managed to compost 5 tons of food waste over the period of the production. That's a really great approach because it ensures that food waste doesn't cause excess methane, which is a highly potent greenhouse gas, thereby further reducing your production's emissions. And then you click save, and then you'll see the entry appears there. Now, the next entry I'm going to do is for timber. Now you'll see I've got 3 separate entries here. First entry I did here was for landfill. I selected timber, landfill, and I put in the volume. Now it's tricky to work out the weight at the end of a production, so it's really good to look at the number of skips that have been ordered by construction or art. And in this case we got rid of 2 5-meter containers or skip bins of timber that went to landfill. So you click save. The next item I put here is timber donation. Now, we contacted a local men's shed organisation, and they came and collected 1 container worth. Now, we've chosen a smaller container, a 2-meter container worth in timber that they were able to reuse, and you can click save. And then the third entry that we've put here is timber stored. So particularly if a show is moving from one series or season to another, and sets may be stored. So I selected timber recycling, selected volume, and it was 1 container, sorry, 2 5-meter containers. Now, your production manager will often order those containers where sets will be stored, so you'll get a very good idea by asking and finding out how many containers have been ordered, but then going in and having a look visually as to the makeup of those containers. You know, how much timber, how much plastic, how much metal, and then from those observations and the number of containers ordered, the number of skips ordered, you will be able to work out a lot of the details in this disposal section, and then you click save. Now in this next section, we're going to complete the entry for textiles. And again, you'll see I've got 3 entries. The first one, textiles going to landfill. So you select textiles, landfill, and then weight. And here I've worked it out to be 1 ton based on the average weight of clothes and number of clothes being disposed of. And then you click save. The next entry is textiles that were stored. So I click textiles, recycling, and the volume, and I observed that it was one smaller 3-meter containers worth, based on my observations that the production ordered of containers at the end of the production, and then you click save. And then the final one is textiles donated. So we did send a number of items that were appropriate and didn't have any intellectual property off to local high schools and community groups, and that was about 8 large bins worth. So I've entered that data in here and click save. And definitely in the costume department with textiles, clothing that is undamaged can very easily be stored and donated rather than sent to landfill. There are also organisations that will, throughout Australia, that will collect offcuts and used garments and then repurpose them. So please explore those options in your state or territory. Now let's do an entry for e-waste. So I've typed in the details there, selected e-waste, and it's really one of the best and easiest things to recycle. So local Officeworks will take e-waste, and also council. So it's generally anything that has an electrical cord and a battery attached, so computers, keyboards, mouse. And in this production, because we didn't have a lot of it, I've worked out that we've actually just gotten rid of 3 bags of about 20 litres each of e-waste, and we've actually recycled that by donating that to a local Officeworks store, and then click save. The next entry I'm going to do is for batteries. So again, if your batteries are rechargeable, you won't be disposing of them, so you won't need to put an entry in here. But say you did use a number of batteries that were single use, so you can put that in here, select batteries. Now let's do an entry for batteries. Now, if you have purchased rechargeable batteries and you're going to keep them and take them onto a next production, you won't need to put an entry in here, but you may have been using single-use batteries. So if you are going to send batteries to landfill, you need to type in the details, select batteries, and then put in the weight or the volume. Okay, in our case, we've got rid of 1 bag, 1 20-litre bag, and then click save, and then you'll see the entries generated there. If you have collected all of your batteries and sent them to a local recycling, a council recycling, or an Officeworks, then you do not need to put that as an entry, but do make a note of it and record and celebrate the amount of batteries that you've collected and recycled. So to rather than that the toxic chemicals in batteries being leaked out in landfill. Now let's do the next entry, which is for paper and cardboard. Now in the materials section, there are separate entries for paper and cardboard, but here it's actually combined. So if you look at your waste management report, it will tell you how much paper is actually going to be recycled and cardboard, because you would put it in a commingled bin. So use that information from that report, and then select recycling, and then put the weight in tons based on your report. And I can see from our report 0.75 tons of paper and cardboard was recycled, and then click save. Now with paper, you may like to put in a separate entry because it's quite common for production officers to have a confidential bin for confidential shredding, and many of those providers will actually recycle that shredded material and give it to a local mill. So it's important to register that as well. I'll do an example of that here. So I've put in paper confidential bin, and in this case, it is going to be recycled. I select paper and cardboard, and then I select recycling. Now, it's difficult to know the weight in this case, but a better option is to select volume, because they often come in wheelie bins, often medium or large wheelie bins, and your vendor can tell you how many bins they collected over the period of the production. So it's usually, every fortnight, depending on how big the production is. In our case, they collected the bin 12 times from the production office of shredded paper, and so you can click save, and you'll see that entry is listed in there. And that just is another way where you can try and capture all of the paper that the production disposed of. Now let's go to the next section, which is plastic. Now, again, I suggest you do multiple entries here, depending on what type of plastic. So the first entry we're going to do is foam. So that did actually, a portion of that did go to landfill, and I observed that in the skips, and in terms of volume, it equated to one 2 meter skip. So I'm going to click save, and then consider all of the other plastic as well that you may have recycled. So if you look at your waste recycling report, it will tell you the percentage of commingled plastic that was recycled. So click plastic, select recycling, and in our case, we recycled 1.5 tons of plastic over the entire production, and then click save. If there's a whole lot of other plastic that you don't really have the time or ability to sort of delineate into each of the different types of plastic, you can just do another entry, which I like to put as plastic other. So select plastic, select landfill, and then do the container size or the weight. So in this case, there was at least another 2 meter size worth container of other types of plastic of all different varieties that I know was part of our skips in our containers, and is going to landfill. So I've recorded that there as plastic other. The next entry I'm going to do is for metal, and you would follow a similar process. So the amount of metal that is going to landfill and the amount of metal that is being recycled. It's really important to know that there are a number of local businesses and organizations that can actually come and collect undamaged timber and metal, and they will often provide it free of charge. So it can be a way for a production to save money in terms of dumping fees, and also in terms of time, in terms of having to make extra deliveries to landfill at the end of a production. So it's really good to plan ahead, and as you are approaching wrap, start booking in recyclers for timber and metal that can actually repurpose that material, and then record how many skips were actually recycled and taken by a local business or a local council. The next entry would be for glass, and it follows a similar process. And then final one is also construction. The construction tab is a catch-all for other types of construction waste that you also wanted to account for. And it also does have the option to be donated. So for example, you may have some set pieces or sets that are a combination of materials that you're actually going to donate to a local charity, school group or community, and you're going to divert that from landfill. A similar process that you follow for plastic, metal, glass and construction, and also timber. Record separate entries for the different types, entries for the amount that is recycled, donated, and the amount set to landfill. And that's how you complete the disposal section of the Albert Footprint Calculator.